All right, World Liberty Financial, the Trump's crypto project. I'm coming out of retirement to talk about it. Hey everyone, my name is Jeremy, and if you want to follow along my journey as I build wealth for my family, then subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing, and remember, none of this is intended to be financial advice. I am simply a man sitting in front of a computer talking to a camera. But let's get into it. All right, so if you haven't had your head in the sand, then you've probably heard something about World Liberty Financial. What is it? We're going to talk about it today. The reason we're talking about it today is they did a big space yesterday, the 16th. Had Donald Trump in there, and it had all of the Don Jr., it had Eric Trump, it had a bunch of the advisors for World Liberty Financial. And basically, to sum this all up, it was about 2.5 hours, and I would say the first 2 hours or so of it was just talking about the Trump campaign, interview with Donald Trump, just talking about his campaigns. First of all, I want to clear some things up because World Liberty Financial has been around for a little while. They've been sort of talking about this, pushing it for well over a month now, releasing details of it sort of as they go along. What was talked about last night was just sort of a small sliver of what they've been sort of releasing over the last month or so. In fact, they've even had more of these spaces. This is just the one that was focused primarily on World Liberty Financial. But what I want to do first of all, before we get into sort of what they talked about last night, I want to jump over to Telegram. So when they initially announced this whole platform, this whole program, they pushed a Telegram group. And if you look at their page, and again, let's make sure we're on the right page because there have been some copycats. World Liberty Fi is the handle on X. But if you see here, Telegram Me, Defiant Ones is actually their Telegram channel. And so they've released a bunch of different things. There was something that came out a few weeks ago called Restore the Republic, claiming to be the Trump project. And I mean, it shot up to $100 million market cap in a matter of like an hour or two. And then a bunch of people rugged it, pulled out millions of dollars. In light of that, they released this announcement. This was September 4th. So I'm recording this on September 17th. So you can see this was a while ago. But this was sort of the first little glimpse into what exactly they were doing and kind of why they're doing it. And so you can go to the Telegram and read it for yourself. But I'm going to read through some of this, talking about rumors flying, about World Liberty Financial. We're not taking any chances. We're working on top of security experts. So they've got a bunch of different advisors into the project. But then they sort of talk a little bit about it. So our mission is crystal clear: make crypto in America great by driving the mass adoption of stablecoins and decentralized finance. So I think that says a little bit about what they're trying to do. And they go on to talk down here why stablecoins matter. We want the US pegged stablecoins to remain the world's settlement layer for the next 100 years. So the idea, we've talked about this on this channel a lot, that the US dollar, in my view, is crashing. We're moving away from the petrodollar. The US dollar is losing dominance in the world. And I take this as them trying to sort of save the dollar. Now, whether or not that will work, I guess it remains to be seen. But the idea is that they are trying to create a platform for buying and selling assets, essentially, and loaning and taking loans out on money. But it's going to be pegged to stablecoins. So essentially it's going to be, it doesn't seem like it's going to be all these other tokens, Bitcoin, Ethereum, none of those. It sounds like it's going to be stablecoins. I don't know if that's exclusive, but the goal being that they want to tie all of this to the US dollar, I guess with the idea that if they build it correctly, then people across the world will be able to lend and borrow stable coins that are essentially pegged to the US dollar, basically propping up the US dollar, and again giving it another way to be utilized worldwide to sort of remain the global reserve currency. They even made comments about being debanked, you know, all of them over the course of the years, especially once Donald Trump started running for political office, their bank accounts being closed. And so they talked even about having, basically carrying your bank around in your pocket. So I almost took a lot of this whole project being the idea of going after the banking industry to the point where you really would not have a need for traditional banks. I almost came across as this was one of their ways that they are going after the traditional banking system, which we all know if you're in crypto could happen easily, right? If there was the ability to transact, to get your paychecks in a stable coin that got directly deposited onto your own DeFi wallet, you know, you could essentially transact everything without having to be involved with a traditional bank at all. So I don't know how much of that is involved in what they're trying to do, but just something to keep in mind. So I say all that to just preface what else we're going to talk about. I've seen some video, like for instance, the Economic Ninja. I love his stuff. He publishes a lot of great content. He did a video today talking about this project, that it doesn't sit right with him, but he didn't really have a lot of this information. So I don't know, he basically was going off of an article that somebody wrote about the space last night. And so there's just a little bit of confusion. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be a great project. I'm not saying it's not going to be a good project. I'm just saying that before you make any decisions, sort of understand what it is that they're trying to do. So what they talked about last night, they did announce that they will have a token. The token ticker is going to be, or they said, what will eventually become WLFI. So it almost sounds like they're going to release a token that will eventually merge into a token called WLFI. One of the things that they announced was that it's basically going to be a governance token. Essentially, there will be a DAO with a governance token. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that means. You know, what is a governance token? This is on CoinDesk. Just try to find something that explained it well enough. It's basically a type of utility token known as a governance token that lets users represent each person's stake in a DAO. And so I don't know if it means that this is going to be, okay, World Liberty Financial is going to be the DAO, and by buying this governance token, you're going to own a percentage of that DAO. The big thing that they harped on in this space was that this token is essentially going to be used for voting. That's why they are creating this, that it's going to be a token that's used for voting how decisions are made with World Liberty Financial. They also said that it's going to be non-transferable. So I don't really know what that means. If that means that once you purchase it, you can't transfer it to anybody else. That seems unlikely, but when they say non-transferable, that's what I take that to mean. So we'll see sort of where that goes as far as what they're referring to on that. The other thing that they mentioned is that regardless of how many of these tokens that somebody owns, the max that they can vote would be 5%. So whenever a vote comes up, even if you own half the float, your vote's only gonna count for 5% of the overall voting. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm not sure how that would work, because if you had multiple wallets, then you could buy, you know, a large percentage of them, and I'm not sure how they would track that. Maybe it's in this next part. The other thing that they said is that this is going to be basically a Reg D, Reg S offering. So what that means essentially is that you're going to have to be an accredited investor to buy these tokens. Right off the bat, that probably eliminates a huge percentage of the general public. Well, I know it does. It eliminates a huge percentage of the general public. If you look at the rules for becoming an accredited investor. In fact, we'll pull those up right now. So to become an accredited investor, to be an accredited investor in the SEC's eyes, you essentially have to have an average yearly income of $200,000 or $300,000 with a spouse in order to participate in these types of offerings. Income isn't the only factor in being an accredited investor. Some of it has to do with your net worth, not counting your house. I'm not going to go into all the regulations on what makes it an accredited investor. You can go research that yourself. But just keep in mind that this token offering is going to be for accredited investors. Basically, the idea being that if you're that type of person, you have that type of income, that by default you're you're more knowledgeable, and whether that's true or not, that's basically how the SEC sees it. And so I get why they're doing this. There's still so much sort of red tape out there as far as how the SEC is going to determine what is a security, what's not a security. And so they talked a lot about their lawyers, and so they've got basically their lawyers saying that you've got to do it this way, otherwise you are in risk of, you know, SEC litigation later on. So that's another big thing. One of the other things is they talked about how the distribution would be. And so essentially 63% of all of the tokens are going to go to the public. So it's going to be part of the sale, and they said it's not going to be a pre-sale. So I don't know if that means that it's just they're going to launch it, and whomever wants to buy at that time that has KYC'd and verify that they're an accredited investor, then they can buy, basically like a whitelist type program. 17% of those tokens are going to be used for rewards. So it talks about user rewards. So I'm not really sure what that means or how that's all going to work. If that means that people who are borrowing, people who are lending, I don't really know. They didn't really explain that. And then 20% of the tokens would go to the team, you know, whether that's the Trumps and all the other advisors that are in there. Basically 20% of the tokens will be distributed to the teams and whatever percentage they do. There wasn't real clarification on exactly what they were doing. We just sort of have to infer. They also didn't talk about whether this token is going to be deflationary or inflationary. Will there be the ability to mint tokens later on? Is there going to be a fixed supply? What's the supply going to be? None of that was discussed. They simply introduced this WLFI, and in fact, they were basically reading a statement. They weren't really even discussing that, where they were essentially reading a statement that I'm sure their attorneys put together to make sure that they weren't saying too much. But basically that, in a nutshell, is what World Liberty Financial is going to be. I suggest, if you want to know more, to go to their Telegram, join that, follow them on X or Twitter. That's where they seem to release stuff. And then make sure that you're joining these spaces. And you can even go here and listen to this full space. I think it's about 2 hours and 10 minutes or so is when they actually start talking about this stuff and the tokenomics and all that. If these type of videos interest you, then hit the bell icon, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Here's another video that may interest you. Go check that one out, and I'll see you over there.